You're listening to a Prairie Punk House Companion right here on the Prairie Punk Press Network. The views expressed by any host or any guest on the Prairie Punk House Companion are the personal views or opinions of the people who express them and do not reflect the views or opinions of anyone else on the show or any company, employer, or any other organization that the individual expressing them has or will affiliate with in the past, present, or future. Hi, everybody. You're listening to Prairie Punk House Companion. We are now on episode 21, so our show is officially old enough to drink. I'm Neckbone.
Hey, I'm Jerbear, and I have a lot of time on my hands now.
You wanna tell our audience why you have a lot of time on your hands there, Jerbear?
One way you could look at it is that I'm on a paid sabbatical.
You make it sound like you're a professor at a liberal arts school.
It's an unwilling sabbatical, as I am furloughed from my job until January. So today we're going to talk about jobs and class war, I suppose.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's a bummer. They are pretty confident that I'll get a call back. But other than that, I am, exploring some options and being a house husband, cleaning the house, playing some video games. Stuff like that. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
It's weird. This is at the start of COVID, I got laid off and was unemployed for 9 months. Luckily, for me, it was during COVID and they were handing out money to people like crazy. So it was actually wound up being a net benefit for us. Yeah, it's not going to be quite as positive this time around, but it'll be fine. Mm-hmm.
If anyone has a job for Jerbear, reach out. Somebody listening might.
Yeah, there you go.
Might be listening and be like, "Hey, that kid's got the goods."
I've got gumption too.
I like the cut of your jib, kid. It's funny you say you got laid off during COVID. I also got laid off at the beginning of COVID. I worked for a university at the time. Mm-hmm. That merged with another university, and there were suddenly a ton of redundancies and a pandemic.
Yeah.
So there was a whole lot of people getting laid off.
How did you fare through that? I mean, did that work out all right for you?
Yeah, at the end, I was on unemployment for just under a year. And in the state of Illinois, I think you only have to apply every year. So I only had to apply the one time and then got it for 11 months. I got laid off a month before my son was born.
Fuck.
So fortunately, we had health care through other means, not through my job. If we had health care through my job, my son's birth would have cost us more than $30,000, which we didn't have.
America. America.
So having health insurance through employers is stupid.
Yeah, it sure is.
Fucking idiotic.
My family's health care is through my employer, but luckily they will pay all of my dues and everything while I'm on furlough. So it doesn't come out of my unemployment. They just pay it while I'm furloughed. Because I guess it's cheaper than keeping me on and giving me a paycheck.
At the end of my 11 months of unemployment, I got offered a job in the Seattle area. Took it. Paid way more than my previous job, and then eventually it went remote, and I got to move back to Chicago. So It worked out really well.
I remember being a kid and refusing to get into the aircraft industry because we're in Wichita, or I'm in Wichita, Kansas, and we are the air capital of the world because we build so many airplanes. That's the main source of employment in town.
It's Detroit for airplanes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I never wanted to get into it because it's so volatile, and I stumbled into it and wound up having a career on the engineering side. Not building airplanes, but I'm doing some helping out with research and development and certification of the parts that we make. And, on the engineering side, it's usually a bit less volatile. But there was a Textron strike for a long time and a Spirit strike for a long time. And that those things trickle down to everybody else. I'm not blaming the striking workers for my furlough. I would blame those larger companies for not paying them enough to keep them on the job. And then those larger OEMs, once they start the lines back up, it takes time for them to pick up their suppliers again. So all these large aircraft manufacturers have a lot of little companies that supply them things. And we're one of those smaller companies. So, those effects trickle down to us and fuck us over. So that's kind of the position that I'm in right now. Yeah, hopefully in January I will go back to work.
It almost sounds like you're suggesting that management tends to fuck over their workers. Is that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's kind of their job, I think.
Yeah.
So we could talk about how we got screwed over by employers. My first job was Taco Bell, and I was a closer. My first job. I was 16. I was in high school. I was a freshman and then a sophomore while I worked there, and I closed on the weekends, which we closed at 11, and then we had to clock out at midnight. And whatever we weren't done with by midnight, we had to continue working off the clock to finish because of payroll. And being a 16-year-old dumbass, I didn't realize they were stealing my labor and screwing me out of a lot of money. And, on the clock, I worked 40 hours a week. And so they were stealing 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. So that's 10 hours of overtime pay they stole from me every week.
Yeah.
I liked working there. It was a fun job at the time, but, and I was like a little salty about it, but I didn't realize just how fucking illegal and how much they were stealing from me. And I was making minimum wage. Minimum wage at the time was $4.25. That was probably the most abusive as far as labor practices go. I had to deal with just because I didn't know any better. They did similar
shit at Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut was my first job, which is now Pizza Hut and Taco Bell are now owned by the same company. So
and KFC and
KFC,
I don't know,
one of the other ones, Long John Silver's.
Okay. Those all wreak havoc on your guts too.
Yes, they do. But at the time, Pizza Hut was still its own company. When I worked there, minimum wage was $4.25 an hour. I think I got that job in 1994. I want to say. That sounds about right.
That's when I got my job.
I didn't realize it at the time, but I was doing radical-ish things. So yeah, Pizza Hut would do the same thing. They would like make me work after close, off the clock, and finish cleaning. Same practices. I think that's pretty common across the fast food industry for when they have 16-year-olds working for them.
Right.
So I would take large amounts of pizza and put them in the trunk of my car, and I would drive to Howard's, the all ages venue, and I'd always keep a change of clothes in my car with me, and I'd like change and like show up with just a fuck ton of pizza.
Nice.
And yeah,
were you a driver then? Were you allowed to be a driver at 16?
You're not. Well, legally speaking, you have to be 18 to be a driver.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I did make a few deliveries before I was 18 because they didn't have a driver on the clock and they needed to get pizzas delivered, so they ordered me to do it.
Oh, cool.
So I was using, and sometimes I didn't even have my own car. Sometimes I would borrow my dad's car or something to go to work. So I was driving one of my parents' cars underage to deliver pizzas.
Nice.
Because they told me to.
Yeah.
That's corporate America, everybody. That's great. For $4.25 an hour.
Yeah, $4.20. Yeah, it's good stuff. My next job was Burger King. After I quit Taco Bell, and it was fine until like I was sick one day. My manager was like, "Well, you need a note, or you don't have a job." And I was like, "Well, I can't make it to the doctor." And he's like, all right then. I was like, well, I guess I don't have a job then. Fuck you, I quit. That was a pretty shitty way to end that job. Yeah. He was a newish manager to the store too. So Burger King was fucking disgusting. I only worked really on the weekends and at first, and so I had to open the grill and cook eggs on there, and then take the stuff out. And we only used the grill for breakfast because they have this little conveyor belt that flame broils all the other food. And I only worked on the weekend, so it was a Saturday, and I was really hungover, and I had to take the grease trap out from the grill, and nobody had changed it, I guess, since I was there. And it was full of fucking maggots. It was so fucking gross. I had to take it out to the dumpster and like threw up like 4 times on the way. It was terrible. Wow. It's just fucking nasty.
I would say that I'm never going to eat at Burger King again, but I already don't eat at Burger King.
Right,
so
yeah.
It's not really going to be an issue for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, Burger King's gross. I do, however, eat fast food occasionally, and I'm sure the other places aren't any better.
I called Taco Bell, Taco Hell, and Burger King, Booger Fling. Those were my nicknames for them. And after that, I moved on to pretty working class jobs. After that, I went to a teeny tiny offset printing company. And it was just a one color offset press, which is you have 2 ink rollers and the sheets of paper go between the rollers, and it puts the ink on there. And this solid punk rock working class job. That was good. And then I went to a bigger company and did that, which allowed me the ability to save up to move to Kansas City and live off of that money for 3 months until I got another shitty job up there, which was less working class and more retail-ish or whatever. But I really enjoyed working in printing. The bigger place I worked at was one of those really big, like, web presses, like you see in movies where they make newspapers. They print newspapers. It was like that. And I was stuck on the end of the press. Huge bundles of paper would come out, and I had to compress them and form them into logs about 3.5 to 4 feet long. And the machine folded them, scored them, and cut them, and then, collated them together and formed them into these bundles. And then I had to compress the bundles and put them on a pallet, and they weighed between 65 pounds. And when we were doing calendars in August, it was 250 pounds. And I had to pull that off of this machine and carry it over to a pallet. So when we were doing calendars, I had bruises on my thighs from where I had to rest these 250 pound logs of calendars on my legs to waddle them over to a pallet and put them on there. It was brutal, and it was 12-hour shifts 5 days a week and 8-hour shifts on Saturday. But it was a union shop, so any amount of time over 8 hours in a day was overtime.
Yeah.
And then any amount of time on Saturday that I worked was double time. So I was making a shit ton of money there, and I didn't mind doing it because, what else? The only thing else I was doing was fucking drinking. So, I just worked 12-hour shifts, worked, 68 hours a week, and made a shit ton of money, and, was able to move up to Kansas City. The people I worked with were, fine for the most part. Management was cool. They were real. I don't know. It was a good company to work for. And I was moving up in the company. So I would have moved up into a higher position and made more money. I think I made $9 an hour in 1998, 1999, making $9 an hour. It was pretty good.
1999 in Wichita, Kansas, which is still one of the cheapest cities to live in the country.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Minimum wage now isn't even $9 federally.
Right. Yeah. Or in Wichita.
Right.
I think
in Chicago, I think
$7.50.
it's $12 an hour in Chicago right now.
But
you can't live on that in Chicago. Not by yourself.
I don't think you can live on that anywhere, really.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Probably not even in Wichita anymore.
we moved to Kansas City after that. But yeah, nothing too exploitative after that for a little bit.
In Wichita, I had some of the weirdest jobs. I mean, I moved from job to job. Like some jobs I would have for like a week or less. Some of the better jobs, I used to work at this place called Opie's Pizza and Grill. That's Opie's, O-P-I-E apostrophe S.
I think we talked about Opie's a little bit.
Probably, yeah. I tended bar there at 18, but my main job was in the kitchen. So I made like pizza, but we also made like steaks and burgers and stuff. It was kind of like an Americana pub type thing.
Where was that?
It was okay to work there. What's that?
Where was it, in Wichita?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was on North Rock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
It was on like Rock Road and like 29th and Rock.
Okay, weird. I don't know
It was
how I
all
never
brand
ended
new
up
stuff
there.
up there.
29th and Rock was like our stomping grounds. That's where we hung out all the time. So I'm just surprised we never wound up there.
And that was back then. 29th and Rock was like all new development.
Yeah.
Like it was just like, it was almost fucking empty up there. Otherwise, worked at Opie's Pizza and Grill. That was a great place to work. The only reason I stopped working there is because it shut down.
Right.
Honestly. Otherwise, I probably just would have stayed there. But yeah, I worked at Mr. Good Sense sandwich shop for a little while. I worked at Arby's for
Which
a
Good Sense
week.
did you work at?
21st and Rock. And the Arby's at 29th and Rock. I worked up in that area a lot. There's always tons of jobs up there because it was all new development.
So I had a friend that worked at Good Sense at 30 or K96 in Rock.
Oh yeah, that's the one. I think that's the one I worked at. Yeah.
Nuh-uh. When?
Maybe it was further north. 96, 97.
Huh. Well, I had a friend that worked there at that time, and the store got robbed, and she got murdered in the robbery.
Oh, right. I remember that. I worked there. I think I actually worked there after that happened.
Yeah.
So you knew the woman who got murdered?
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that being in the news.
We went to high school together. She was a year above us, but we went to that Good Sense a lot for lunch because it was pretty close to our school. Because our high school allowed seniors to leave for lunch. So we went up there a lot. And yeah, it happened on a weekend, I think.
She was closing.
She got fucking murdered.
That is, I remember that being a huge fucking thing in Wichita. I didn't hang out up there a lot. My high school was closer to downtown.
Right.
So yeah, we'd go to lunch like, close to, we were just east of downtown. So
there was like a Hardee's across the street from your school.
Or we'd go to we went to the Taco Tico on the Hillside in Douglas a lot. That's actually where I met the Fannings, was at that Taco Tico.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Me and Leahy used to go there for lunch like every fucking day. But yeah. Tons of weird jobs. I worked at a place called Discovery Zone for a while, which is like,
I loved it when you worked there.
It's for like an arcade for little kids, but like bounce houses and stuff. And my job there was so they served Pizza Hut pizza. One of the reasons they hired me is because I said I knew how to make Pizza Hut pizza because that was my first job. And we only made personal pan and large. Those were the only two sizes we had.
Didn't they have some kind of mascot?
Not while I worked there. Not that I remember anyway. Yeah. But my job was to unjam the tokens out of the gaming machines and make Pizza Hut pizza. Those were the two jobs that I had there.
Were the machines owned by United by chance?
Oh, I have no idea. That was above my pay grade. It was just go use the key, unlock it, unjam it, close it back up, tell whatever kid's bawling to stop crying.
Yeah.
Move on.
Did you work at Chuck E. Cheese's too?
No. The only place I worked with the mascot was Little Caesars, but that was in Kansas City.
No, I swear you had to like dress up in a costume one time.
No, they tried to get me to dress up in the Little Caesars costume, and I refused.
Huh.
Yeah, and I was like, no. So they made someone else go out there. But don't worry, I will get to that Little Caesars because even though I loved that job, I had one of the worst bosses I have ever fucking had. He was the assistant manager. Absolute nightmare. I'll get to that.
Yeah.
But I think the next job I had after Discovery Zone was very, very, very briefly, I worked at a Cracker Barrel.
Ew.
Up by the Kansas Coliseum.
Yeah.
So like way north on 135.
Yeah, it's still there.
We should, next time I'm in Wichita, let's go dine there. Yeah, so I was a dishwasher there, and I think that was the shortest job I ever had, and it lasted about 45 minutes.
Is it because somebody dropped the N-bomb and you had to leave?
No. Okay. People have done that at jobs I've had before, jobs that I quit.
Yeah.
But that I'm sure it would have happened there if I'd stayed there longer than 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that made me quit was I'd been there 45 minutes and my boss came and said, hey, I need you to take a break. And I was like, I've only been here like 45 minutes. And he was like, yeah, I need you to clock out and take a break. And I was like, okay. So I clocked out and I started to walk out the door and he goes, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to go over to McDonald's across the street and get some food because we also had to pay for our own meals at Cracker Barrel. We did not get a free meal.
Uh-huh.
So he said, no, you can't leave. You actually have to eat here and pay for it.
What the fuck?
And so I said, okay. So I grabbed a glass, filled it up with ice and Coke, and walked out the back door and drove off. And then I think about 3 months later, I got a paycheck in the mail for like a couple $100 because I never clocked out. So I think they didn't know when I clocked out. So they just said, fuck it, he worked the whole shift. Just send him the fucking money and let's not deal with this anymore. So, and then another terrible job I had was, do you remember the long distance company MCI?
Oh, I sure do.
So a lot of people don't remember this, but a long time ago, there were mainly 3 long distance companies who were competing for long distance business on our landlines.
Yeah.
AT&T. And there were AT&T, Sprint, and MCI.
Yep, that is correct. MCI was out of Kansas City, right?
I think, Sprint was out of Kansas City.
Oh, it was Sprint. Okay. I knew one of the big ones.
I don't know where MCI was out of. But yeah, so I went and worked for MCI, and so I was a telemarketer, which is still one of the worst fucking jobs I've ever had in my entire life. I think I worked there for 3 weeks, about 3 weeks. They expected me to show up in a tie, which is weird because I'm calling
for the
people.
Phone?
Yeah. They're like, we want people to be dressed professionally, and they had a big banner up when you walked in that said, so that Jerry Maguire movie had just come out. Mm-hmm. And so they had a big banner up that said, show me the money.
Wow.
And they would give motivational speeches at the beginning of every shift.
Yeah.
And they'd, be like, today I want you to. Then they'd point at the banner and everybody in unison had to go, show me the money.
Wow.
And it was one of the most soul-eating jobs I have ever fucking had. The day I quit that job, even though I didn't have another job to go into, was one of the happiest days. Just driving away from that fucking place for the last time was just so satisfying. And I think that I had made, so part of your paycheck was commission. I think my commission was 0. I think I made 0 sales in 3 weeks. And I just didn't fucking care.
Dude, sales is the fucking worst. You gotta be a special kind of person to work in fucking sales, and it is not me.
Oh, it is to this day, I think it is tied for the worst job I've ever had. The one that it's tied with is I had up in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. I think that's all the Wichita jobs I had. Well, all the ones that are worth mentioning. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I had new jobs. Like for a while, I had new jobs like every fucking week. I honestly, my wife makes fun of me because I'll randomly remember that I worked somewhere and just interject it into conversation.
Yeah.
Like she didn't know until recently I worked at Cracker Barrel.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that.
She was like, "You worked at fucking Cracker Barrel?" I was like, "Yeah, I did for like 45 minutes." She was like, "You never mentioned that before." I was like, I don't know, never had a reason to mention it before.
I think it's a requirement to be racist to work there.
I think so. I think it is. Yeah, it's my grandma sure did love Cracker Barrel.
Shocking.
She called it the Cracker Barrel, of course.
Of course, it's because that's where the crackers go.
That's true. That's true. Miss you, Grandma. But yeah. I'm trying to think. I think, yeah, that's pretty much all the Wichita jobs I had. I worked at a Godfather's Pizza on the west side briefly.
Yeah.
I hit all the pizza joints. It was on like West and like Central and West Street or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right for Godfathers.
I worked I was a short order cook at a bar and grill on 21st and Woodlawn. I cannot remember the fucking name of it to save my life. I was like, it was like a Houlihan's type of situation, but it wasn't Houlihan's.
It'll come to me because I know what it is.
So if anybody remembers the name of that fucking bar and grill that either is or was at 21st and Rock, it's kind of a bro-y place.
21st and Woodlawn, I thought you said.
Oh, sorry, 21st and Woodlawn. Yeah, my bad. 21st and Woodlawn. It's kind of a bro-y place. But yeah, if anyone who remembers that, like,
I know what it is. I'll ask some people because I know they know what it is. I just don't remember it.
Oh, okay.
It's not the Oasis. It's not the Oasis, was it?
No. It was called like, it was like, I don't know, like somebody's name or something. I quit that job eventually. It wasn't that it was a terrible job. It wasn't a great job. But I mean, being a short order cook is, it is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
I didn't hate it, but I was very distraught over a breakup, and that was right before we moved to Kansas City.
Was it Waltz?
Nah.
No,
it wasn't Waltz. I was moping around the kitchen, and people were giving me shit. And so I was just like, fuck you, I quit. I don't even care anymore because I'm going through this breakup, and it's going to be the worst thing I ever experience.
Yeah.
And it was not the worst thing I ever experienced. Not
well,
close.
You thought it would be.
Yeah. I thought it would be. Man, what a blessed life I would have had if that would have been the worst thing I'd ever experienced.
Right.
But yeah, then we moved to Kansas City. I think that was one of the last jobs I actually had in Wichita.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to talk about some of your Kansas City jobs,
I only had the one.
Oh yeah.
It took me a long time to get, but I worked there for a year, a little over a year. It was Wild Oats, the health food store, and it was great up until. So our friend Lisa was the manager there, and she moved to Seattle. And then we got this guy from South Carolina, and he was great. I really liked him. I don't remember his name. But he was super rad, really easy to work for. He's a great guy. Fun.
Didn't you say you worked there with one of the members of Sufi Nun Squad, which I just found out randomly on our episode with Nicole? I was like, I didn't know you worked with somebody from Sufi Nun Squad.
Tim from Sufi Nun Squad, and also Nathan from Coalesce and Casket Lottery worked there.
Yeah, that was the place to work, apparently.
Yeah.
I also worked there with you.
Yeah, towards the end, right?
Yeah.
Did I think I quit while you were still there.
Yep. I stayed a little longer than you.
So what made me quit was all the cool managers left, and this skeezy douchebag started working there. And like it was a health food store. And it was a chain, but it was in this small rundown ass building, and it felt very much like a mom and pop shop because it was so small and tiny. We were like the bastard child of Wild Oats at the time. They had just put the new big store on Mission in. So, we were getting more scrutiny because why aren't your numbers better? Well, because it's a 200 square foot store.
Right. I think when I worked there, I remember them saying that it was the second smallest Wild Oats after one in Manhattan, New York.
Yeah.
Like there was, and that one wasn't that much smaller. It was like pretty close.
Yeah. So this guy comes in, and he's, like, he's going to turn things around and shit like that. But he also ate McDonald's every day. And, like, there's nothing wrong with McDonald's. Don't get me. I mean, there's plenty wrong with McDonald's, but there's nothing wrong with people. There's nothing wrong with people choosing to eat McDonald's. But the culture at the store was very much like, we work at the store. We believe in the things we're selling. Like, like, we care about health, we care about food. And he was just bringing gross, disgusting McDonald's in every day. And so...
Which, it's one thing if it's like occasional, if you're like, oh, you know, every once in a while I like to indulge myself and get some McDonald's.
Sure.
And, you know,
it was every day.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. Yeah. Right.
Every day. It was fucking disgusting. So my position was the dairy and frozen manager. Now, that didn't mean that I managed people. That meant I managed the department because there was no one under me. So I did the ordering, the purchasing, ordering, and stocking of all those items. And, you know, this guy comes in and he's like, your numbers need to get better. Your numbers need to get better. It's like, okay, I'm working on it. I had previously, before he got there, I was just in charge of frozen, and that was easy. You know, frozen was frozen. It was pretty steady. We also didn't care about numbers going up until he got there. Dairy, there was this really weird lady in charge of dairy, and she didn't know what she was doing. And so dairy was like really, really, really struggling, and she quit or got fired, and they're like, here, you do this for now because no one else can do it. Like, okay. So he comes in, he's like, your numbers are way down from last year. I was like, well, last year I wasn't in charge of this. I had just started working here last year, but if you look at the numbers from the previous months, you can see that they're trending up. And he's like, no, it's not good enough. We are going to demote you and take dairy and frozen away from you, and you're just going to be a stalker again, basically. Stocking shelves, not following people who don't want me to follow them. And so I was like, fuck you, I quit. And I was living with Leahy, and I was like, hey man, I just quit my job. I got to get the fuck out of here. That's when I moved to Lawrence.
Yep.
And I don't know what it was like after I left there. I was really fucking pissed. I mean, I left mid-shift, which, I tried to be a good employee and give notice and stuff like that, but nah. Fuck that. I just left. I was so mad.
Yeah. You were a much better employee than I was then. I think most of my jobs I quit on the spot. Almost all of my minimum wage jobs I quit on the spot, with a few exceptions.
My loyalty was to my coworkers because I didn't want to fuck them over.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of stuff about why, like, it was a corporation, and especially towards the end, they started giving less of a shit about their employees. And they also didn't pay us shit. So, like, you do little things to supplement your income,
right?
Places like that. So, since I was in charge of ordering things, and they were, pretty liberal with how stuff went. We donated stuff to Food Not Bombs a lot. Laszlo always talks about
that's
Food Not
awesome.
Bombs. But if stuff was damaged, we could take it home. So, sometimes unloading a truck, there were just, I don't know, there's a bag of open broccoli. It's the damnedest thing.
That's wild.
There's
total coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I got a lot of groceries for cheap or free working there.
Yeah. I mean, that should be one of the benefits of working at a grocery store.
Yeah. When you're poor and working class and things like that are available to you, you supplement your income. And it was, like I said, it was a corporation. I'm not stealing from the lady down the street. I'm stealing from a large corporation based out of Boulder, Colorado at the time. Now I think they're owned by Whole Foods. So, I mean...
are they owned by Whole Foods now?
Yeah. Well, I don't think they exist anymore. I think Whole Foods bought them out and replaced all the Wild Oats with Whole Foods.
Shit, I think you're right. Now that I think about it, the only Wild Oats I can even remember being in the Chicago area. There was one in Evanston, and I think last time I drove by it was a Whole Foods.
Yeah, so, probably. Certainly wasn't above supplementing my income with things like that. And that was Kansas City. I tried to get some printing jobs up there, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't get my foot in the door.
Oh, yeah.
It was really hard.
Kansas City
was way harder to find a job than I thought it would be.
Kansas City was way tougher. Yeah.
I mean, I went expecting I could get a printing job like that. And I couldn't even get an interview at a print shop.
That's crazy.
So, I went back to food service and retail because I didn't know what else to do. While that's wound up being a good job for, a year. It was fun. I worked with cool people.
I remember having a tough time finding a job in Kansas City. I think the first job I got in Kansas City is I went right back to my roots. I got a job at the Pizza Hut over on Rainbow and 43rd in KCK, delivering. But yeah, I ended up delivering pizzas in KCK. I went back to my roots. I don't remember how long I worked there. It wasn't that long.
It wasn't very long. I'm trying to figure out what motivated you to go get your bartending certification or whatever that was.
Don't
and
remember
where you did that at. You went to bartending school for like
it was like a couple weeks. It was like a couple week course.
Oh
no, it was a couple weeks.
I don't know, everything's fuzzy.
Yeah, it was just a little like bartending certification thing. It was a couple of weeks. They show you the basics and give you certification basically they just give you a food license or the food handlers, liquor handlers thing
card
and show you basics. That's about it. Yeah.
And
it was in Westport.
Was that so you could specifically go to Houston's, or Houston's is just where you got hired on after you got that cert?
Houston's is just where I got hired after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You hated that shit too.
Oh, I absolutely despised that job with a passion.
What was
the
is
biggest
it just all
assholes.
the fucking yuppies? Is that what
so many
what the deal
yuppies?
Was?
Yeah, and the tips were shitty.
See,
it was it was on the plaza. It was on the plaza.
Sure.
So
I thought you were going to make bank.
I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make. I'm right on the plaza. I'm a bartender. I'm gonna make fuck tons of money, and I'd make shit.
Yeah,
like I think I made more delivering for Pizza Hut.
Yeah. So you working there is actually how I learned how to tip at a bar, because I had no fucking clue before. Because I grew up uncultured swine and didn't know about tipping or anything like that really. And you're like, no, dude, you got to tip. You tip at least $1 every drink.
Yep.
Go,
a buck a drink. Yeah.
All right. I didn't know that before. I'm sure bartenders fucking hated me. But
now I probably tip more than that. I don't really go out and drink very often, but when I do, I usually just open a tab.
Yeah,
and then I just pay it like a restaurant check at the end, and so I probably tip more than a buck a drink now at this point.
Well, before I quit, I would probably tip at a bar just on drinks closer to 30%, just because I spent so long being a bartender and getting shitty tips. And when you're a bartender and you go out to a bar, you always tip well. I don't know. Yeah. I can't think of a bartender that didn't over tip when they went out to another bar.
God. Frickin' Carly, when Carly first moved to Chicago, and I'd come up and visit her when I was still in Kansas, she was a bartender in Lakeview. And we'd go out. I'd usually crash at her place and we'd go out. And she would tip like 80% or something bonkers like that. And I'm just like, dude, I cannot afford to tip like you tip. The amount you tip is insane.
Yeah, especially if I was going to a place I went often. I mean, I would basically buy 2 drinks for every drink I got. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I would have, it was when I was really bad alcoholic, but I was making tips all the time too, so I had plenty of money and I didn't have any expenses. Really, barely. So I would have $80 bar tabs.
The amount of tips I made bartending was way higher in St. Louis than it was in Kansas City. I made way more. Kansas City, you need to step up your game in tipping. It might be different now. This was 25 years ago, but at the time, St. Louis is way better at tipping than Kansas City is.
Yeah.
So, or at least was. But yeah, so I did Pizza Hut, I did Houston's, and Wild Oats. I got a job, ended up getting a job at Wild Oats. I don't remember why exactly. I think you just said you guys were hiring, and I was like, cool, I need a change. And
yeah, I think that's kind of what it was. You're just like, fuck it.
you hired me. Yeah. And I don't remember at what point I had this, because I would move back and forth between Lawrence and Kansas, especially after you left. Mm-hmm. I moved back and forth between Lawrence and Kansas City about every year. So I don't remember where some of these jobs fell in the timeline.
Uh-huh.
I just remember where I worked in Lawrence and Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the tied for worst job that I ever had was I was a waiter, which is almost as bad as being a telemarketer. Mm-hmm. In my opinion. It's not for me. I'm definitely a back of the house guy. Mm-hmm. And boy, I learned that really quickly. All my restaurant jobs before that had always been back of the house. And I never had a front of the house job again after that one, unless you count bartending as front of the house. Bartending is kind of a hybrid,
right? Well, you get to have the attitude of back of house, but you're facing customers like front of house,
right? But yeah, when you're a waiter, you just can't be an asshole. And I remember I worked at this place called Jazz. It's right on 39th and State Line in Kansas City. Yeah. Technically in Missouri, it's on State Line Road.
I didn't realize
it's on the Kansas-Missouri border.
Funny.
Yeah, it was a horrible, horrible job. I think I was a waiter there for about 2 weeks, and I had a manager who would, I'd have to go and put like silverware on the table, and if there was even a smudge on any of it, he'd come and like throw it at me.
Cool.
Yeah, and start yelling about how we need perfection, and I don't know, something I kind of stopped paying attention to him at that point.
What was Jazz? But I think what the fuck?
I know, it's supposed to be laid back. But I think for me, the deal breaker at Jazz was the fact that even the other employees, most of them anyway, were really shitty. And so one time they came and they said, we just sat some people in your section, and we're really sorry, but they're Canadians.
Oh, fuck.
And my first thought was, how did you know they were Canadians? Are they wearing like a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey or something? Like, is it like, are they like,
did they ask for maple syrup?
Are they like flappy headed, like in South Park or something? Like what, like, how did you, like, that was my thought. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and also, why does that matter if they're Canadians? So I approach the table, and everybody at the table, they're all black. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, there's black people in Canada, sure. But I just kept wondering. I was like, how did they know they were Canadian, though? So I walk up and I talk to them. I take their order. No, a Canadian accent detected. Okay, weird. So yeah, I go up and I take their drink order and go back. And I mentioned to the host that like, oh, hey, how did you know they were Canadians? And he was like, Canadians. And I was like, you were going to have to. So I am slightly neurodivergent. So stuff like that has to be explained to me. I take people very literally. Mm-hmm. So if somebody says they're Canadians, I'm just sitting there like ripping my brain apart, trying to figure out how they're Canadian. Like, were they talking about the parliamentary election? The fuck are you talking about? They're Canadian. And they're like, no, Canadian is code for black. And I was like, okay, interesting. And I started kind of putting it all together. Mm-hmm. I'm young at the time. I'm a little slow. So I wasn't really picking up what they were putting down. But basically, they were warning people when black people would come in.
Now, and can we just take a moment to appreciate the irony of a bunch of white people warning other white people about black folks coming into a restaurant called Jazz in Kansas City. I just want to take a moment and let that sink in for a moment, because that's something, all right.
So cut to, I didn't keep that job.
Right.
I left that job pretty quickly after that. No, I was
shit.
like, I think I'm done at this place.
Yeah, that's fucking bullshit.
Of course, I had my two favorite Kansas City jobs, and I had them at the same time. So I got my job at Videomania. It was an independent video store down the street from my house in Westport. And then I only worked about 25 to 30 hours a week there. So I supplemented that with delivering pizzas for about 10 to 15 hours a week at Little Caesars in Shawnee, Kansas. I really liked both of those jobs. I had a good friend at the Little Caesars I worked with, and we talked about her in a previous episode. She was murdered. She was my friend who was murdered.
Oh, yeah.
So it was that Little Caesars I worked with her at. And, of course, the video store was just fucking awesome. Like, working at a video store, to this day, if I could make a living working at a video store, that's what I would do.
Fuck yeah.
Just sit there.
That sounds awesome.
Talking about movies, talking shit on movies, talking shit on the movies people select, making fun of people for going into the porn room. It was just a fucking blast.
Yeah.
Coming up with games. We had a game where we had a baseball behind the counter, and somebody would call out a movie, and you would have to try to hit that movie with the baseball, and there was no prize.
Right.
Like,
just something to pass the time.
Other than just, your own personal glory of knowing the store that well to be like, oh, I know where the fuck that movie is. And then also having the skill to actually be able to hit it with a baseball. They were all in protective cases, so they were fine.
Right.
We were the first video store in the Midwest to go all DVD.
Oh, wow.
So we only had, even in 2000, I think I got that job in 01. We were, I think, 90% DVD by the time I got there.
Huh.
And the only 10% that was VHS was because it was just stuff that was out of print.
Oh.
So, porn, yeah. We had both. We had porn on Laserdisc, too.
Wow.
The porn room was something else. Man, you get desensitized to that shit real quick when you got to put all those movies away.
I bet.
Yeah. It definitely, I definitely became way more comfortable with myself. Like, okay, it doesn't fucking matter. I'm from a conservative family in the middle of Kansas, but after a while you're just kind of like, hey, who fucking cares? Yeah, that was in a back room. You had to get buzzed in and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But the front was, our video selection was people came from all around to rent movies from us. People drive in from way out in the suburbs.
Right. For
just
porn?
To get, because we had, that you could get anywhere, even back then. But to get our independent films and stuff, we had stuff that was out of print, stuff that was bootleg, stuff that was region free that we'd gotten, especially cool. Like Japanese and Korean stuff. So yeah, we had like an awesome selection. It was just a fucking great job. Little Caesars was just fun because I liked the people I worked with.
Right.
I didn't work there. I only worked there about 10 hours a week and mostly just delivering. So
it
wasn't
delivering in
difficult.
Shawnee. So that was, you probably got decent tips for that.
Super laid back. Yeah. Delivering around Shawnee, Kansas is super fucking easy.
Yeah.
And, just hop on Shawnee Mission Parkway. It was a straight shot. It didn't actually take me that long to get there from Midtown. But the only thing that made it suck was I had an assistant manager, and I can't remember this guy's fucking name for the life of me, but he was the assistant manager of the store, and he was one of those, like, Jobsworths, like, just kind of shitty, we need to watch our bottom line for the company, and we need to, just kind of like, dude, it's a fucking major
taking Little Caesars super
chain.
seriously.
Right. He definitely took himself way too seriously. And so we used to have, that was when Little Caesars had started doing the hot and readies.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They'd have stacks and stacks of like pepperoni and cheese, just simple stuff. Pepperoni, cheese, sausage, single topping. And you could come in and give them $5 and we hand you a hot and ready. And we'd always have a bunch left over at the end of the night. So one of my jobs as the closing driver was to take them and throw them away. So instead of throwing them in the dumpster, I opened the trunk of my car and put them in there. And then when I drove back to Westport, I would stop at the island and open up my trunk and hand all the homeless people all the pizza.
Right.
Because
Instead
it was going to go in the
dumpster.
fucking trash anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Granted, I'd hold on to a couple for the house.
Sure.
There's a bunch of poor punk rockers living there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of them I just give out on the island. And the assistant manager found out I was doing that, threatened to have me fired, threatened to have me sued by the company.
That's crazy.
And he said if he caught me doing it again, he would take everything from me. And I'm like,
everything.
Dude, I work part-time at a video store and part-time at a Little Caesars. I ain't got much to take.
Right.
That will be a short amount of time to take everything from me. And this was after, by the way, my good friend had been murdered. This was only a few weeks after that.
Jesus.
And that was his response to him finding out that I was giving homeless people pizza that was just going to go in a dumpster anyway.
Yeah.
And he said, if one of them got sick from eating it, they would sue us and the corporation would close. And I'm like,
do homeless people have lawyers?
Right. Like they got a lawyer on fucking retainer somewhere that I don't know about.
The fuck?
So that was a great job with a shitty manager.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
I think that covers all the relevant Kansas City jobs. We got some Lawrence jobs too.
Yeah. So I already talked about the health food store in Lawrence and how I got fired. I don't need to rehash that.
Right.
But
we talked about it 3 times so far.
Yeah, I forgot about one job I had. So Andrea, Shannon, Dakota, and Dakota's brother. I don't remember.
Brad?
Yeah, Brad.
Yeah.
All lived at this apartment on top of the hill on 11th Street. Like 11th and Ohio, I think. They all worked at a telemarketing place. And they knew I needed a job. So they're like, oh, you just come out there. We'll give you a ride, fill out an application, go through the training. Fuck. I don't want to, but okay, I will. And I went through the training and was about to actually start. And it was horrible. It was so fucking bad. And I didn't even actually talk to customers yet. I just went through the training and it was so fucking bad. And I got hired on at Central Soy.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, fuck this. I'm not doing this. I don't have to work at this fucking telemarketing place.
That's a good call.
I couldn't fucking do it. I knew that I wouldn't be able to stay there very long. And that shit is not for me. I forgot all about that until you talked about your telemarketing job. I don't know that I talked much about working at Urban Outfitters.
Right.
I worked there for a while, and that was a fun job because of the people I worked with. The company fucking sucks. The owner's a bigot, terrible guy as far as politics go. But I worked in the men's department there, and I worked with Eric, who has passed, and we did a lot of display setup. So we violated OSHA a lot by climbing up on ladders to hang pegboards. They're like 15 by 12 foot pegboards, probably. Well, maybe they were. No, it was probably 8 by 4, but we had to hang a bunch of them up. So, and we were like dangling off ladders, and I'm afraid of heights. So I don't know if you remember Urban Outfitters, but it had 3 levels, and
it was a former movie theater.
Oh, was it?
Or a venue, former music venue / movie theater. Yeah.
So the top level was the main part of men's department. The mid level was just like shoes, and then the floor level was women's and home and all the other stuff. But we had to hang pegboards for the middle level from the top level because it was tiered, so there was none of the floor space was covered by the upper levels. So we were on the upper level hanging off of a rail, drilling in fixtures for pegboards and painting them and It was terrifying, but also kind of fun. So we didn't have to deal with customers when we were doing that, because I'm not built really for retail, because people kind of piss me off. That was a good part of it, but the kind of degrading thing was whenever you left, they had to check your bags and pockets in case you were stealing.
Wow,
that was cool. I always liked being treated like a criminal when I left my job.
It's a great company to work for.
They didn't really pay very well either. I think I made, because I worked there and at La Familia at the same time, and I made more at La Familia. But I was working like almost 40 hours at both jobs. So
I think the video store paid me almost, I think about $8.15 an hour.
That's probably what that might have been what I made at,
which was at that time minimum wage was still, I think minimum wage back then was at that point had gone up to $5.25 or something maybe like that, or $5.15.
I must have been making like $6 then, because I wasn't very much at Urban Outfitters.
Yeah,
and I think I was making $6.50 or $7 at La Familia. Plus the servers would tip us out.
My rent at the Central House, I remember this was $187.50 a month. So,
that was what our rent was at Boston too.
Oh, Boston, yeah.
No, what?
Yeah.
No, maybe it was like $137.50. It was fucking cheap.
Yeah, I think it was less than that, yeah. Working for $8 an hour at one job and then $5.50 an hour plus tips at the other job was, my rent was almost nothing.
Right.
Like, I just had money all the time.
Yeah.
I think I had more disposable income than I do now. It's like, fuck.
Yeah, no shit.
Because I didn't have to spend it on anything but myself.
You know, I worked at the record store and it closed. And then I worked at the Cedar and got married and needed health insurance. So that's when I moved to the car dealership, and that's probably the worst job I ever had as an adult. Just because it was sales and it was soul crushing. Like, a handful of people I worked with were pretty cool. The ones that were cool, I still talk to for the most part. The reason I worked there is because Josh from Spirit of the Stairs worked there. And he was like, you know, we have good benefits and stuff like that. It's not that hard to sell cars. He was very much a salesman and sold me on that job. And it sucked. It was really hard to do. It kept me away from my family. I had a new baby and I was working like 60 hours a week, and it was rough. It was really, really hard. And, you know, there was a change in management, and they cut so instead of making traditional commissions, which is a percentage of the profit you make on a car, it was a set amount per car. So you didn't have an incentive to sell a particular car for the profit motive, but you had a motive to sell more cars, because the more you sold, the higher that base number went up. And when the management changed, they started lowering that number per car that you earned. And then they gave somebody a promotion over me, and I was like, fuck this shit. But they had some really negative cultural shit there. It was very, very, very classist and racist. They had a joke where if Asian people would come in and they would say they want a goodbye, and then they would wave and say goodbye, because they're difficult to sell cars to. So that was cool. Everyone there went to Central Christian Church. Everyone went to Central Christian Church, which is a very culty evangelical church. And I'm pretty sure they broke some labor laws by asking people people that worked there, what their religion was and what church they went to. You're not allowed to ask that question. That is illegal. And I was I'm openly non-theist, and at the time I was antagonistic towards religion. So, I was like pretty vocal about my beliefs and how uncomfortable they made me. And it was a joke to them. I was reminded of this yesterday because I went to a function at our high school in town where they were pinning early graduates who received their CNA certification. And it reminded me that they referred to CNAs as certified non-achievers because getting a certificate as a nurse's aide is somehow beneath what normal people would do. So certified non-achievers. They also liked to do what they called the W2 test, or the W2 IQ test. And whoever's W2 is bigger probably has a larger IQ because everybody knows that if you make more money, you're smarter. So it was really ugly, and I had to get out of there. And, was very, very fortunate, and that's when I got into the aviation industry and engineering through my former boss from the Cedar. And that's kind of what I've done ever since. There's a practice at one of my jobs, I will not name them, where at Christmas parties they wrap money into a box and saran wrap and pass it around, and you get a certain amount of tears at the saran wrap to try and get to the money. And it seemed like a pretty fun, harmless game at first until I noticed the owner and his buddies, who are millionaires, videotaping and laughing about it. It was not for the benefit of the employees. It was for their entertainment I can only assume. I didn't go up and talk to them, but getting that much amusement out of poor people scrambling for $100 bills wrapped up in cellophane. Kind of, maybe I'm cynical. That leads me to believe that, it was just entertainment for...
I must be equally as cynical then, because it gives me the same feeling.
Feels real dirty. That's why I didn't partake in it. Not that $100 wouldn't be nice, but I'm not going to root around in his trash for money, because it's demeaning. So that's that. Yeah. That's working for very wealthy people is very different than working for a small company. Or even a national or multinational corporation, because you're insulated from that type of wealth. But when it's a small company owned by a millionaire who is accessible to employees, and to see that was really disturbing. Yeah.
Hey, this is the more that they do stuff like that, though, the more radicalized people we'll have on our side.
Yeah.
So,
sadly,
go ahead and go mask off, millionaires and billionaires.
Sadly,
please do.
It didn't seem like anybody else got the joke. Because to me, that's what it was. It was a joke. Like, look at them. Ha 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 ha. Hey, rich buddy, look at them trying to get $100. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
It's fucked up, man. It's fucked. And, I guess this brings about class war.
Good. I would say there were some good companies. I worked for La Familia. I definitely felt like the owners of La Familia were right there in the restaurant working with everybody else. They're not
for sure
millionaires. They're not probably even 100,000 honestly.
Well, they had to close. So, they didn't own their building, and the owner basically kicked them out because he wanted to put something, because
they jacked up the rent.
Money. Yeah, family.
Yeah. La Familia was awesome. They were awesome. They were great bosses. Like the owners are right there with you, on the make table, on the floor, sure. Like
making great food. I mean, the
honestly, I loved that job.
Yeah, totally.
That was
I loved washing dishes there. I loved being on the line there. I loved to go there and eat after I stopped working there. Yeah, it was great. The family was great. And the mom came in multiple times a week and made some of her specialties. I think she really liked to make the mole. For a while. I think she kind of stopped doing it after I think when you were there, she wasn't showing up as much.
I still saw her. I saw her about once a week. But there was some other odd company. I worked at Central Soy with you for a little while.
Yeah, I wish
that was an odd.
I loved their. It was very strange. I loved their products.
Great tofu. Yeah.
Great tofu. Great soy milk. The smoked tofu was so good.
And we used to
we
used to get it. He would just hand us. He'd be like, "You want some tofu to take home?"
Yeah.
And just hand us blocks of it, and then we'd get some fucking ramen and some veggies, and boom, you got a meal right there.
He just couldn't manage the money. It seemed like I don't know. Somebody has it. I mean, it's still in business. I don't think that Jim still owns it.
My last good place that I worked at where I actually felt like the owners actually gave a fuck was Wheat State Pizza. Closed. It grew really fast, and I think it grew too fast for its own good.
Oh, yeah.
It started with one store in Lawrence, and then it opened a second store in Baldwin City, just south of Lawrence. And I took over as assistant manager of the Baldwin City store to help. So technically that was a franchise. One of the drivers bought the rights to open that store in Baldwin City and made money hand over fist because the rent for the building was like $600 a month because it's Baldwin City, Kansas. There's a small liberal arts college in the town, and they were the only pizzeria in the town.
Oh, nice.
So they had 100% of the college students of the townsfolk. That place just made money, and unfortunately, the owner of that particular franchise was a massive alcoholic, mismanaged a bunch of stuff. There were plenty of times where I had to ask him to not be in front of the customers because he was misbehaving and fucking up his own business, basically.
Jesus.
He was a nice guy when he was sober. He wasn't like a bad guy or anything. He had some problems, and it eventually closed. I think it's a Mexican restaurant now in that location. And then all the other Wheat State pizzas were owned by a guy named Ryan Murphy, not the guy who creates all the horror TV shows.
Right.
Not that Ryan Murphy, a different Ryan Murphy. I actually really liked him. I thought he was a super nice guy. He opened a bunch of locations at once. And same thing, I think financially he just mismanaged them, or whoever was in charge of the money did. And it all just kind of collapsed in on itself. He was not a millionaire or anything like that. He would work on the line with us. Especially when he opened that first store, gave us pretty good wages considering it was a fledgling little pizzeria. I mean, compared to what other chains paid in Lawrence anyway. They offered me my own store. They were going to open a new store. I forget in what town, somewhere just west of Baldwin City, south of Topeka. They offered me my own store. They offered to train me to be a regional manager at some point as they got bigger. And I turned it down to move to Chicago with my then girlfriend and got a job delivering sandwiches on a bicycle for minimum wage. But I guess it all worked out because that chain slowly collapsed in on itself and I would have been unemployed anyway. So, and then the job, I worked at Potbelly Sandwiches, delivering sandwiches on a bicycle. I worked at 3 locations. I worked at Evanston, Illinois, Lincoln Square in Chicago, and Webster in Chicago. And they paid me my base salary. They based it out of Evanston because they could pay me less. If they based it out of Evanston because it's not technically the city.
Right.
And that was the last service industry job I ever had. I was 30 years old at that point.
If you had to pick one stereotypical punk rock job, what would it be?
I would say, and I'm going to lump these two into the same category, but I would say working at either a video or record store or bookstore. Video, records, or books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, just because of the people I know, screen printing.
Screen printing, yeah.
Other,
Also, I would say delivering pizzas, because there was a whole fuck ton of punk rockers who delivered pizzas.
Any food service, they're
right.
Punk. Construction is a good one. That's maybe more street punk, oi type stuff, but skinhead type stuff. But punks, lots of punks do that too. Any kind of factory work, really. Yeah. Creative stuff.
Oddly enough, working in, at least in Chicago anyway, working in like high-end restaurant kitchens.
Yeah. Yep.
Like really common for punks to, I mean, for fuck's sake, I mean, we know punks who are trained chefs.
Yep.
So multiple.
Well, the cultures, there's kind of crossover of cultures there, and I don't think that punk rockers are lazy. I just think that there's a different work ethic there. I don't think, I don't know. Punk rockers are weirdos and don't necessarily want to do normal shit that ties them down or whatever. I know I'm making broad generalizations, but, freedom is important.
Well, it's a type of culture where it attracts people who want to do things that fulfill them, that want to do what they want to do, and they're not too worried about other people judging that.
Right. They don't,
or how it looks from the outside.
And again, these are broad generalizations, but they don't live to work. They work to live. So whatever they can do that affords them the lifestyle that they're comfortable in. And, if it weren't for being married and having a family, I'd be a lot more like I could need less to be comfortable than I do right now. Just simply being basically alone or whatever. Not to say I'm like, I don't want to give this up. I have a really sweet life. It's incredible. But, if I was a single 20-something punk rocker, I would not want to be behind a desk. I would want to be doing other things.
Punk rockers work to live instead of live to work, because so many people outside of the scene, so many people outside of the lifestyle, they define themselves by their jobs. Like that's just who they are. And I don't really define myself by my job. I have a professional career, professional white collar, behind a desk career now. And it's not really a big part of who I am. It's, I do my 8 hours every day. And then I log out and that's it. I do stuff like this. I do podcasting. I am trying to hopefully in the future get a zine put together, just stuff that I want to do. I write, work on my novel, shit that makes me feel fulfilled, that has literally nothing to do with my fucking job.
Right. Yeah. So, I want to spend time with my family and go on vacations and my job that I might have currently not going to affords some of those things that I'd like to do and want. I want my kids to have a better life than I had growing up, and so far I've been able to do that for them. My priorities have shifted, and I want them to have comforts and things that I wasn't able to have. If you work an hourly job, don't let them exploit you. If they want you to do things off the clock, don't fucking do it. Say no. Right. And if they try to fire you for not working on the clock, then, I know lawyers are expensive, but you could file a claim with the Department of Labor. And they'll look into it. If you're a salaried employee making less than $43,000 a year, they're required to pay you for overtime.
Right.
By law.
Yeah.
And in January, it's supposed to go up to $58,000. So, if you make under $58,000 a year as a salaried employee, and they want you to work overtime, they have to pay you for that overtime.
Yes.
Now, Texas has challenged that law. I don't know where it stands right now. It might get shut down, but that's where it is at the moment. The plan is in January, if you make under $58,000 a year, they want you to work overtime. They have to pay you for it legally.
Yeah.
Department of Labor. You can look all that stuff up. Make sure you know your rights. Because if a capitalist can exploit you, they will. Yeah. Well, they're already exploiting you. But if they can further
but more
exploit you, they will, because that's what capital does.
Yeah. Don't do any work you do off the clock. If you're working and they make you clock out and you're working and you hurt yourself, you aren't on the clock. Mm-hmm. Anytime you're working, you should be on the clock or being paid or in a paid status, whatever that means, however your job does that. And if you injure yourself at work, go immediately, go to a doctor. Mm-hmm. On the clock, go to the doctor. Because I slipped and fell when I worked for Potbelly, and I was delivering in Evanston, Illinois. It was December, so it was pretty cold and icy out, and I was walking down somebody's porch, and I slipped, fell, and I thought that I was fine, and so I kept delivering. The next day, it turned out that I had a hairline fracture in my wrist.
Oh, fuck.
And I went to the doctor. I did not have health insurance, and so I tried to file a claim, and they said, well, why you didn't go to the doctor that night, so you must have been fine. You must have broken your wrist after you'd left work. And I was like, no, I reported to my manager that I slipped and fell, and they're like, yeah, and your manager said you were fine. I'm like, my manager's not a doctor.
Right.
So how would they determine that? And I almost had to pay out of pocket.
Fuck.
For a cast and everything.
And also, just remember that you don't owe your boss or your company shit. They pay you to be there. They owe you.
Right.
You're paid to be there. You don't owe them shit. They owe you. That's why they pay you.
If you have PTO, use it. Especially if you have use it or lose it PTO, use it.
Don't fucking don't let them con you with this family bullshit. We're a family, blah blah blah. Use your vacation time, use your sick time if you're lucky enough to have it. Don't let them fucking exploit you, because they fucking will. That's what capitalists do.
Their job is to extract as much labor from you as they can for the lowest price possible.
Yeah. And advocate
that's what they want.
Advocate for yourself, ask for raises. Yeah.
Unionize.
Talk to your coworkers and ask what they make. I know it's
gauche.
It's frowned upon to talk to coworkers about how much they make, but that's the only way to find out if you're getting fair wages.
Well, that is a part of our culture that was implemented by the owner class.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because they didn't want people talking about their wages. It's not polite
to talk about your wages.
You go to other countries, people talk about how much they make. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like they'll talk about it within one or two conversations that they have with you. It's like it's only taboo in I'd say American/Canadian, like North American culture in general. But most of the rest of the world, they'll fucking talk about it. Maybe Britain is more like us because they voted to not be European anyway, so it's a stupid decision. Let's be more like America. They seem to have things really great over there. I mean, just look at Amazon. They don't let their drivers pee.
Right? What the fuck?
They time people's bathroom breaks. They fucking how dystopian have we become that they're fucking timing people's bathroom breaks?
Yeah, that's capitalism working, baby. Things are very discouraging.
Yeah. But like we said in our last episode, we're trying not to be doomers.
Yeah.
Take this opportunity to, like we said, like we work to live, but once you're not at work, do stuff, do art, write books, write zines, do a fucking podcast.
Yeah.
And
we have tons of listeners.
Right. You'll have access to all of our few dozen listeners if you come onto our network. We'll really boost those numbers. But yeah, start a fucking band. Fucking whatever your bag is, man. Whatever you need to do to be creative. And don't worry about not being very good at it. You get better as time goes on and you do it more.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't get discouraged. Try to be positive. Always remember to delete your Twitter. Fuck Elon Musk. Fuck that guy. He's like he might be worse than Donald Trump. I don't know. Like I think he is one of the most dangerous people on the planet. Fuck that guy. Delete your Twitter. Don't buy his shitty car, and don't use any of his shit.
He certainly seems to think he's more powerful than Donald Trump.
Oh, for sure he does. Yeah. And in some ways, he might be right. I mean, Donald Trump has become a symbol for a movement, but I mean, he's an old guy. He's not going to be around a whole lot longer.
So much of Donald Trump is posturing. Just look at his fucking appointments. I mean, his cabinet appointments are, for the most part, standard Republican bullshit. He's not going to destroy very much with his cabinet appointments. Maybe a couple of them, but not all of them.
I think Elon Musk is the guy to watch out for. I think he's the real threat.
Well, any billionaire.
Warren Buffett.
Yeah, Warren Buffett.
You're thinking about Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett. He is not a good billionaire. There are no good billionaires.
No such thing.
Bill Gates, monster.
Right.
Jeff Bezos, monster.
Jeff Bezos, yeah. Fuck that guy. There's the fucking the guy from Virgin, the British guy. What's his fucking name?
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson. Yeah, same. Fuck him too.
Yeah.
Fuck all these guys. They're not better than you or me or anyone.
They're better at exploiting people.
I don't know why so many people keep putting all these guys on a pedestal.
Elon Musk hasn't invented a fucking thing.
Or the fucking Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy too.
Fuck that guy too.
Like, cool. He backed Harris. Okay.
You know what else he wanted to do? He wanted to get rid of Lena Khan, who's been the best thing for labor in the United States in 50 or 60 years.
Yeah. Cuban hedged his bets. He thought that Harris would probably win. He was wrong. And if he seriously thought Trump was going to win, he probably would have fucking backed him.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
doesn't really give a shit.
Don't forget Mark Zuckerberg, who hedged his bets and didn't endorse anyone, and was also supporting.
But did have dinner with Trump.
Also supporting getting rid of Lena Khan. I can't think of a single billionaire who didn't want to get rid of her.
There's no good billionaire. Even a billionaire who wears a rainbow flag pin is still not a good fucking billionaire. Us talking about our jobs that devolved into us bitching about billionaires. But come on. If you've listened to our last 20 episodes, you should have known that's what was going to happen. So this one's on you, listener. But please go to our website, www.prairiepunkpress.com, and follow us on all of our socials. They're all on our website. You can click any of those links and go to anything. You can become a patron, like Mr. Power, who we
Mr.
still
Power.
owe something to.
You should go, if you're in Wichita and you need a tattoo, you should go to Tenfold. They don't pay me. I just like them.
And we actually have 4 of our friends' businesses on our website. So you can visit any of those 2. We also have another tattoo shop on our website, Abraxas Tattoos in Lawrence, Kansas, River Rat Skate Shop, LFK Press, and Ad Astra Comics. And you can go to all of their links on our website. Go to our website, click on all the stuff. It's a lot of fun, probably. I don't know. I try to keep it updated. But reach out to us on Facebook, Threads. Do we have a Blue Sky?
No, but we could, I suppose.
I guess we could. Anyway, maybe we'll get a Blue Sky. Maybe we won't. But we are not going to be checking our Twitter. Delete your Twitter. Fuck Elon Musk.
Let's just
delete. We're just going to delete. I've been preaching delete Twitter for like weeks, and we still haven't deleted ours. But that's okay.
I just haven't yet.
I think I have a personal Twitter, but I honestly don't remember how to log in because I think it has been at least a decade since I've done so. And I think I've maybe tweeted 3 times, and I didn't really know what I was doing. So I thought I was like sending a direct message to somebody, but it tweet just like, hey, what's your phone number again? Just shit like that.
Boomer. You fucking dumbass.
It's like, fuck this app. So I hated Twitter before it was cool to hate Twitter, but now it's especially cool to hate Twitter because fuck Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Richard Dawkins may think he's brilliant, but Richard Dawkins can go fuck himself. So
what brought him up?
Oh, I watched a video earlier today about how Richard Dawkins thinks Elon Musk is. It was from The Friendly Atheist. And he was talking about, Richard Dawkins thinks that Elon Musk is brilliant and diametrically opposed to Donald Trump. And then Elon Musk chimed in on Twitter saying, no, I'm not actually. I love Donald Trump. Like, contradicting Richard Dawkins himself. It's like, yeah. Why would you think he's diametrically opposed to Donald Trump? What brought you to that fucking conclusion?
His head is so far up his own ass.
Yeah.
I haven't taken him seriously in at least a decade. Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris.
Fuck all those guys.
They're all fucking racist fucking bigots.
Yeah, they are.
That's
they're
big reason why
Christian now.
Yeah, right. I saw that.
Whatever the fuck that means. Get the fuck out of here.
I have denounced the title of atheist from my descriptors. I am an agnostic non-theist because I don't want to be associated with shitheads like Sam Harris and Richard fucking Dawkins. Bill Maher, fucking hell.
And Bill Maher. Oh, HBO keeps trying to suggest Bill Maher to me.
Fucking
like, we
why?
think you'd like this show.
No, why?
I don't know. Probably because I watched Last Week Tonight.
Oh, okay.
And they think that they're similar. They're both done by comedians on HBO.
Consistently, the worst takes on liberal bullshit come from Bill Maher. I mean, he's not, and when I say liberal, I mean center-right American Democrats are liberals. Right. They're not the left. Nowhere else in the world does anybody consider liberals the left, except for the United States. Liberals are not left. They're center-right. Bill Maher is basically a fucking Republican now. And he sucks. Yeah. He fucking sucks.
I see bits of his stuff on from his show on YouTube because I won't actually watch the show, but I still want to see what he fucking says, and from his fucking podcast. I don't know if I realized this 20 years ago when I thought I liked him, but like, man, this guy's such a fucking boomer. Jesus fucking Christ.
It's fucking terrible.
His jokes they're not even funny, even on just the most fundamental level, even not even talking about like, I'm not, and I don't mean they're like, oh, I'm so offended. No, it's just, they're just not fucking funny.
Not funny. Yeah. And I don't know if
stereotypes and fucking just same old tired dumb stereotype fucking boomer jokes.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's him that changed or if it's my sensibilities that changed or what, but he is not funny.
A little of both.
He's not edgy. He's not doing anything interesting. He doesn't have anything interesting to say. He doesn't do anything interesting.
Right.
I don't particularly like Bill Burr, but it was fucking hilarious when Bill Burr fucking owned his ass on his stupid podcast show.
Even looking at once upon a time, I really liked the movie Religulous.
Yeah, dude, I can't fuck with it anymore. It's fucking bullshit.
I know. Now looking back on it, it's just Bill Maher going around and being a dick to people he thinks he's better than. That's all that fucking movie is.
So this ties into our last episode. But that fucking mentality is exactly what the Democratic Party has. There was a tweet I saw it posted on Facebook. I think somebody reposted it from some fucking Democratic operative somewhere, and it said it showed a map that was almost all blue, and it said if we limited voting to those with college degrees. This is what the map would look like. Fuck you. Yeah. That's why you fucking lost. That's why Democrats fucking lost, because of bullshit like that.
Right.
Like, fuck you, you elitist fucking prick. You left the working class behind, and this is what you fucking get.
And that's who they fucking should be courting, is the fucking working class.
Yeah.
That's who hey, we've got something to give you. They
Right.
haven't given the working class anything.
And that's why they're all
no
Trump
wonder they're losing
supporters.
votes.
Yeah. The pandering that Trump did to the working class is insincere.
Yes.
He does not care about the working class. He does not care about poor people. But he gave them a message. He gave them something to rally behind. And so they voted for him. Democrats called them despicable. Joe Biden called them garbage. Whether he intended to or not, perception is reality. That stupid fucking gaffe he made, people believed it, that he was calling them garbage. Working class has been left behind by both parties. Donald Trump is just a liar and swindled them. They'll find out.
Right.
And they won't have a political home again.
Right.
And my guess is that things will go back to a similar place as they were in 2004, 2008, 2012.
They're just grifters.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
They're just fucking grifters. They're just better at grifting than the Democrats right now.
Yep.
But basically, the message is, this isn't the end of everything. This isn't the end of our country or any crap like that. Hey, if you subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel and make sure you hit that bell and click on all of our links and follow us on social media, everything will be fine. I can promise you that.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Every time...
I'm not a grifter.
Every time you hit subscribe, a crust punk gets a butt flap.
That's right. That's right. And you're going to want those crust punks to have all the butt flaps that they need.
Do people still wear butt flaps?
Probably somewhere.
I hope so.
Somebody's wearing butt flaps.
I hope crusties are still rocking butt flaps.
Let's go find some crusties and you can just interview them. Be like, hey,
pardon me,
still
sir.
wear the butt flaps?
Pardon me, young
Pardon
man.
me, my good crusty friend.
Have you a butt flap?
We've definitely dragged this on longer than we intended to. Still go to our website, www.prairiepunkpress.com. Go to all of our social
You don't
media.
need to do this again.
I got to. Subscribe. God damn it.
Can't sign off without it. Do we have to do it again?
You motherfuckers. I know there's you motherfuckers out there listening to us who are not subscribed. How dare you?
All right, I'm not going to bed because I don't have to get up in the morning, but I'm going to...
All right, I am going to bed because I do have to get up in the morning and I have a dog to walk.
Bye.
All right, bye, everybody.